All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's kick off episode 62. Two sponsors for today's episode. The first one, and I suspect this might be the top of everybody's list when it comes to their favorite sponsor, is, you guessed it, Blue Chew. Thank you to Blue Chew for supporting the Cleared Hot podcast. If you want to find out what Blue Chew is about, even though I'm going to tell you what it's about, you need to visit Blue Chew, BLUECHEW.com, and put in the promo code HOT. When you do that, you're going to get your first shipment for free, and you're going to pay, well, not going to be totally free. You're going to have to pay for shipping. I found at my house it was like $4.78. It says, it's going to pay $5. It's going to be plus or minus a little bit from there, probably depending on where you live. And I suppose it would be how fast you would want it to be delivered to your door. So again, that's bluechew.com, promo code HOT. So what is it? Well, in the simplest terms, it is a performance enhancement chewable for your bedroom activities. It has the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so it's going to work. But it's chewable, so it's going to work faster than a pill. You can take them anytime, day or night. You can even take them on a full stomach. Blue Chew is cheaper than both Viagra and Cialis, so that in and of itself kind of makes it a no-brainer if you're spending a ton of money on either of those. And the coolest thing about it, in my mind, because I'm a total puss and would be completely embarrassed to be able to go and sit in a doctor's office and talk to a doctor and explain what's going on, is that you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend time in the pharmacy as well. Blue Chew ships direct to your door in discreet packaging. You can go through a medical questionnaire on the site. They're going to determine what the prescription should be. You're going to get a prescription from a doctor, and it's going to show up at your house. So again, the deal is visit bluechew.com and get your first shipment for free when you use the promo code HOT, H-O-T, uppercase, lowercase, I don't think it matters. You'll pay $5 in shipping, and use responsibly. Be smart. If you're going to get some of this stuff, don't go crazy. Or do go crazy. But if you do go crazy, go smart crazy, not crazy crazy. The second sponsor for today's podcast is by far my favorite supplement company, Onnit. Onnit.com/hot. ONNIT.com/hot. Now, what time of year is it? Everybody knows what time of year it is because nobody will shut up about what's happening on Friday, right? What is it? It's Black Friday. So it's that time of year. It's time for Onnit's Black Friday sale as well. So starting on Thanksgiving, November 22nd, Onnit is going to have the biggest sale of the year and is going to deliver the deepest discounts on all of your favorite products. Nothing's off limits, which is kind of awesome. I know a lot of Black Friday deals, they're pretty narrow in scope of what they're going to apply a discount to. So nothing's off limits, to include the #1 selling nootropic, Alpha Brain. Love this stuff. Use it all the time. What else? All Marvel and Star Wars fitness equipment. Even the complete day and night supplement packs, Total Human. Now, I literally just took the nighttime Total Human. The difference in how I sleep when I take that pack versus when I do not it's pretty startling. For me, I have to have my sleep. I'm probably not the easiest person to be around when I don't get good sleep. I am the opposite of Jocko. I wake up at a reasonable hour, which is something after 4:30 on most days, even though for a week I did wake up before him just to taunt him. And then, as usual, he continued on. I was like, I'm tired. I'm going to get some sleep. But I'm off topic. Sorry. So the Total Human stuff is awesome. If you're going to start with Onnit, I would recommend the Alpha Brain. I've also really liked the Alpha Brain Instant. It's a powder versus a pill. And the Total Human. That is where I'd recommend you start. So to top off the sale, for the first time ever, Onnit is going to be offering free shipping. There are some exclusions that apply. So what you can find on the website starting on November 22nd, you're going to get 25% off any supplements, 18% off the fitness equipment, including the Star Wars and Marvel, 20% off the foods, 50% off DVDs and books, 30% off apparel and personal care items. In addition to massive price cuts, the more you buy, the more awesomeness you're going to unlock. A $10 coupon, free shipping, and premium free gifts are available this year. So what should you do? Well, you should do whatever the hell you want to do. But if you want to make 2019 the best year of your life by stocking up now, this is what I recommend you do. shop starting on Thanksgiving. The sale starts on Thanksgiving at 9 p.m. So mark your calendars. And you're kind of a psycho if you still use a paper calendar. Maybe you could just put a calendar alert in your phone because it's 2018. And they'll be launching some amazing deals every night at midnight starting that day as well. So free gifts and those doorbusters, as they are referring to, are in limited supply. So when you see them come up, get them. Get on it. You see what I did there? Get on it. Onnit.com/hot is the website for the podcast, but this particular website you should go to for your Black Friday deals is onnit.com/black-friday. What is the name of the dash? I don't know. BLACK-Friday. onnit.com/Black Friday. And those are the sponsors for episode 62. What can I say about this episode? First and foremost, I am incredibly grateful that my wife decided to join me. And if you looked at the written description of the podcast, you're going to notice that it says Part 1. The first time that we sat down, we actually recorded just over 2 hours. And I was going to release that podcast Monday of last week. And before I was able to, or not before I was able to, but before I went into the editing software and stitched the 3 sessions that we did in one day together, my wife wanted to listen to it back. And she was unhappy. Is a word that I would use. I think she would agree. But and she was uncertain about how she was coming across. And right now, unfortunately, I'm speaking for her instead of her speaking for herself because she's got a little bit of a cold and she did not want to sound raspy. So I'm speaking for her right now. But what I was going to do, if she was able to join me, was let her talk about how she felt about sitting down and having the conversation that we did. It was hard for her. It was hard for me and probably in different ways. But to be able to ask her those questions and to sit there and absorb her response and watch her work her way through it was an amazing thing. And I've said time and time and time again that I truly believe that her perspective and the perspective of the family members that support a military member it's a more important and impactful perspective than my own from what I did overseas. It might sound flashy, they might make movies about it, but at the end of the day, it's not. It is what it is. It's a job, and the families that are not involved in that play such a critical role in enabling the individuals that go forward and do those things to be able to do those things. So I incredibly value her perspective, but it was hard for her, and I would say she feels uncomfortable about how she came across. And the reason that it has taken an additional week for me to be able to release this episode is that I wanted her to listen to it again. We talked. I understand exactly how she feels. I'm a little bit more used to, obviously, having my voice being heard because I host this podcast, but I understand how it could feel for somebody who has never come out into the public arena and how they're concerned with how they would be portrayed. In my opinion, she did awesome. She was honest. There were emotions involved. She gave answers from the hip, which is exactly the way that I think that they should be. I would like nothing less than to record a podcast that had canned answers. I think that the emotion and working through the questions is what makes the episode what it is. I love it. I love the fact that she was willing to do it. She has specifically asked me to tell everybody listening she's sorry for the cursing, but if you know my wife, you're going to realize that she curses sometimes. So, this is part 1, and it's important for me to say that, and she wanted me to say that the reason that we were able to do this and the reason that I'm releasing this now is that it's a beginning. It's a starting point that we can build on, and I really hope that some family members out there hear her perspective and can appreciate where she is coming from, what she has gone through, and it helps them with where they are. Because I will tell you right now, you're not alone. I think more people are in this position than are likely to talk about it. And that, in my opinion, is the power of her perspective. So I'm going to stop running my mouth and let her speak for herself. Episode 62 with my wife, Jamie Stumpf.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Are we not in a good... I don't think that's it.
That's fine, that's how you start it off. It falls. Just leave it. What were you going to ask? Are we not in a good spot?
I'm just saying, like, maybe you should sit over here since this is where all your
I don't have any notes. You have all the
stuff and
notes
things are.
in front of you.
Last, I remember you saying I am a guest, so I would imagine you would be guiding all things.
So do you want me to just read you the questions, or what would make you feel the most comfortable for structure?
Well, have you read any of them?
I read them all.
Do you want to ask me any particular ones first? Particularly?
Yeah, let me see.
So, okay, hold on. So I did make some notes, and I only got through a few pages because
There's a lot.
there was, I don't know if there's a lot, but there's a few. So the ones that have number 1 on it, I thought that would be something that I would like to talk about first, because there's so many and I'll talk a lot, so
All right.
maybe that's why we're... So number 1, I think that first one right there, like that,
The very top
I would
one?
like for you to read the questions.
Okay. And then I think the timing of this is really cool too, because Monday is Veterans Day, which traditionally is focused on just the veteran, but I think there's more to it than that.
Well, I mean, that's just what they call it, but we all know what it is.
Okay. I think the best...
We all have an interpretation of what Veterans Day is for us, and that's what I think Veterans Day is. Like, I have my own thought process.
As you should.
Yeah, and it changes every single time, so...
So, I think the most important question is Mrs. Stumpf. Would you prefer to be called Mrs. Stumpf or Jamie?
Is it my number one?
It is... When you first saw your husband, what drew you in first?
Lie.
Chiseled good looks or rugged features?
Jesus Christ.
Well, I just figured we would start off with that, because I assumed that I was irresistible upon you first laying your eyes on me. I'll take your silence
First
as you
of all,
disagree.
our 15-year-old son just waved to both of us as he's supposedly leaving with a...
He's good. He's got his buddy who's wearing
he's
shorts
got
in the
shorts.
snow.
I don't think it's safe.
It's a Montana boy. He's fine. Okay. Are you ready? Are you going to ignore my first question? Or are you going to...
I'm listening. What'd you say again?
The question was, what particular feature was it that you found irresistible when we first met? Of the many choices.
So unsafe to answer.
Okay, let's move along to something serious before you actually tell the truth. So all of these questions, I'll do my best to read the screen name. It gets really, like this one guy, Nolan Ryan, the best ever. I'm assuming he likes football, but I have no idea what his name is. So the one you have listed as number one
Right.
is ACAM or ACAM 54. I have been looking forward to this episode. Please tell your wife, on my behalf, to be open and brutally honest. Because...
No problem.
Let me finish.
Okay, sorry.
Because of the platform she has access to, I think it's important for her to share what I assume is her unhappiness with the military. I love what I did in the service, but I know that my wife hated it. Hopefully hearing what your wife has to say and how she feels will let other spouses know it's okay to feel how they feel. They don't have to have blind patriotism just because it's what, in parentheses, we're supposed to do. it's awesome to be patriotic, but at the end of the day, it's family first, and the military sometimes takes away from that. And before you answer, a question like this is exactly why I said to you multiple times that I think this particular episode, I can erase any of the noises, it's fine if you move the microphone, that this particular episode is, I think, probably the most important one I could ever do. For specifically questions like this, because I've heard, seen, and have sent to me versions of that question multiple times per week.
Well, that was a lot of questions all in one statement, but the reason why I put number one for that was just the gentleman was asking for me to be brutally honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, with you and I clearly have no problem doing that. But when
Which I think is good.
But when I talk to other people, I'm not so much brutally honest. I mean, at times I have been, given where we were and, the company they're in, I've been brutally honest many times, I believe. So giving him requesting me to be brutally honest, that's kind of just where my mind stops. I'm like, whoa. Jeez. Can I say a lot of bad words?
It's the internet. You can say anything that you
Right.
want to.
So I know I've heard that. As much as you don't think I have listened to plenty of people on your podcast, and that's a thing a lot of people say, and I think it's a thing that most people are super terrified of, and I also am, and that's why I haven't wanted to voice my opinion for a very long time. And I, beginning back a few years ago when you would have people come to the house, television crews, and they wanted to interview us or the kids or
We only said yes one time out of all of that.
yeah, they didn't even fucking use it.
They did.
Probably because I said I don't know.
They used a portion of it, but it was the portion where you started tearing up, which is the one part, if I remember correctly, that you didn't want them to use.
Well, I don't know. I actually don't even remember any clarification of that, but whatever. So I'm here now. Whatever. Fuck. What's the next part of that question?
Well, I want to...
So he asked me to be brutally honest. I'm going to do that. Maybe that's part of like why you and I can throw bombs and then recover in some kind of a way.
I don't know.
Thankfully, at least, still,
So he assumes that you are unhappy with the military. And maybe that's a narrow question. Were you or are you unhappy with the experience you had with the military while I was serving?
So I've said this a few times to you before, I know for a fact, and I think I've shared it with a few other people that have asked me similar questions that were friends of ours. And it's just like, for a long time, I didn't have anything good to say. So I just always kind of felt like, well, I shouldn't say anything, because who wants to make a bad situation worse? Like, who wants to hear...
What would you have said?
Fuck if I know. I don't know. Let's stay on the simple stuff.
Well, I don't know.
So I remember one example of a particular situation where we were at the drop zone. I think it was like after maybe the interview you're talking about, or right there before. And supposedly the girl that I was introduced to was the wife or soon-to-be wife of a guy that was going to go to Dev Group. And she wanted to ask me some advice, I guess, and a question or two. And at the time when she asked me, I really didn't hesitate. I was like, don't fucking ask me my advice or my opinion, because I told her, I was like, I don't have anything good to say, and I don't want to crush your thought process or dreams. I don't know what they have going on or whatever. I only know our own situation, and I know you've said that 1,000 times, and that's probably something I takes probably one of the steps that has brought me to here to talk to you now is that you've, just pieces of the puzzle. So I didn't say anything nice. I tried not to say too much. I just said, hey, I didn't have a good time. My experience sucked. I didn't like it. Didn't give her any explanation or reasoning why, which looking back, I kind of wish I would have.
What do you wish you would have said?
I mean, I don't even know. I would have to ask her a question or two before I would have gone any further. I just knew I didn't have anything good to say, and I had to keep my mouth closed at that point, and I was irritated looking at her beautiful face, thinking of how young she is and envisioning myself in that situation. And I mean, I commend her for reaching out to people to ask that question, because I never asked anyone that question. So yeah, I don't know. I'd have to have a bit more of a conversation with her. But
So I've been out now just over 5 years. Last day of June this year was the 5-year mark for me. In the way that you view the military now and our experience as a husband and wife, has it softened any, given the distance from it, or do you still hold the same feelings?
well, the fact that I kind of want to tear up and cry right now, I would say I probably hold different feelings, because back then I would be ready to cuss and fight and say negative things, and I don't know, maybe not say anything, not be open to any conversation. And now, obviously, it makes me cry a little bit, so I would say my perception has changed, my heart has changed, and it was a crazy thing. This is why, this is also too one of the reasons why I didn't want to do this, Andy, is because I haven't shared it a lot, and I have a definite fight or flight emotion that you've seen many times, so I'm trying to be way smarter than I am and think that I'm talking to a woman that can only hear me and not see me, or a man. And I'll try to keep myself together.
I'll just start crying too. It's going to be a total mess.
Just continue the question. Just keep talking and don't let me sit too long.
We got to lighten it up. What's your favorite color?
Fuck off.
All right, we're back to the woman I know.
Okay.
All right, another one that says number 1. Oh, man, here we go again. Maligator 707. Where these people come up with this?
Sorry, y'all.
That's all right. Mrs. Stumpf. I was wondering, I hope this doesn't...
First of all, don't ever call me that again.
Well, what do you want to be called? I'm just going to call you Jamie.
Jamie's good.
Jamie, I was wondering how you dealt with receiving the news when Andy was shot. I'm sure it was a lot to process with him being so far away and all the unknown info. I work in LE, which means law enforcement, and my wife is a dispatcher for the same agency, and our shifts intertwine, and unfortunately she may receive the same call about me someday. Her and I will listen to the podcast together at times, and maybe your experiences can help the other spouses in similar situations.
Well, first of all, similar situations are not that that's completely fucking different to have your wife be working in the same kind of office and get that phone call and then have to delegate her tasks through protocol. I guess that's fucking terrifying. But that's kind of what I went through when I got the phone call. I was like, so you...
Well, hold on. We should explain how you were notified, because it was unique the way you were. Most people are not notified the way you are.
How are they notified?
They get a call from somebody at work, or they get a knock on their door. In our particular instance, I was able to call you, which is atypical inside of the military.
Yeah, so that was fun. Probably I was definitely pregnant with Tyler. I don't know how far along, 5-6 months, something like that.
Well, he was born in August. This happened in early February, so about halfway.
Yeah. Oh, no, I have boogers. Do you have tissue?
No.
Fine.
So, do you want to tell me? I can give you some time to think. I can explain. What
I don't
happened.
need time to think.
Why
I
is
know exactly what the fuck happened. I was sitting on the couch early morning watching a movie, probably freaking Spirit with Riley.
Yeah.
And because he was having one of his meltdowns or whatever, and we're just trying to
He was 2 at this point.
break through. Yeah,
Yep.
he was a super sensitive kid. He's since been, he was, so whatever. I don't know if I want to talk to that right now, but he was a super sensitive baby. I was awake. We were watching a movie. I got a phone call. It was early in the morning in Virginia Beach time. And you just kind of answered the phone pretty casually. I could tell it was you because there was like a crackle in the line, and it wasn't like a normal phone call. And if I remember correctly, I could be misrecalling, but I'm pretty sure the line said unknown. And that's how at the time then, or
Probably.
blocked, something like that. That's how at the time I knew it was a phone call from you, because don't nobody else call me. So when it was blocked and unknown or whatever it was, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, well, just took the phone call like, hey. And then you were like, hey, it's me. I got shot. I'm fine. I'm like, okay. And so then I immediately went into just, okay, great, you got shot. Where? How bad? And then you proceeded to tell me, and I didn't want to hear what the fuck you had to say. So then I said, what'd the doctors say? And I remember asking you that, like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times until you finally answered me. And I said, what did the doctors say? How much bleeding? All these kind of, like, I went into, like, I know whatever, but I, kind of do. So that's all I cared about was I want an immediate baseline of your injury. Obviously, at the time we were kids and I'm pregnant, and I'm not thinking, oh, well, he can call me, so he's fine, Cause
I remember you asking, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I could swear the timing of the phone call on my side was not awesome because they juiced me with a thing of morphine that had to been the size of that Starbucks cup.
I was very gentlemanlike. Yeah, no, you're very well behaved.
And handed me the phone, and I said, hey, Mara's supposed to be home in 2 months. Well, I'm on my way home now. Because I got shot, and I swear that you said, like, in the face?
Probably. I was like in your head? Or, like, are you dying? Like, do we have seconds? Or, like, can I talk to you tomorrow? It was in the morning. I was probably breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, basically, somewhat, however I asked the question, I was like, to you, are you dying? Like, is this because you didn't give me any preface it.
I don't know the right word. I don't remember.
You didn't give me a freaking heads up. Like, you didn't say, hey, I'm okay, whatever. You just started it like, hey, I'm shot.
Well, I've never had to make a call like that.
Well,
and I was highly medicated at the time.
Yeah.
And that 24 hours, so I had to wait to call you about 18 hours because when it happened, you were asleep. It was the middle of the night where we were. And I didn't want to call you in the middle of the night. So I actually wait until they moved me to where they put me on the plane before I went to Germany, before I made that call. I was looking at the clock, trying to figure out what time it would be okay to call you.
Yeah, and I did the same thing and turned to your parents. It's probably the second second, I don't know, however it would fall in. Most difficult conversation I had to have with your mom.
What did you say to her?
Well, I waited. Vaughn thinks I called at 3:30 in the morning. I did not.
Yeah, when he was saying that, when I had doing the podcast with him, I was like,
it's all right. Everyone has different. That's probably a pretty good example of how time gets a bit
Warped.
soupy, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I waited at least 3 hours before. I think I waited till 8 a.m. Could have been 7 a.m. Definitely wasn't 6, but I waited for a while and I called your parents and I remember sitting on the couch and I had finally gotten Riley to bed. Thank you. And 6 months pregnant with Tyler, sitting on the couch in Virginia with remember how cheap I was that I put the plywood over the fireplace because I thought that would insulate the house better.
Yeah. It worked.
So I remember sitting and staring at that plywood and that fireplace for a good long time and thinking of, okay, so I have to tell his mom and dad like what happened, and I have to make sure that I'm not, don't want to cause pandemonium. I don't need to, he's fine, he's safe. Like, so I'm pretty sure I said, and it's whatever, your mom would know because she was the one I spoke to. But basically what I said to her was like, hey, Andy called me, he's been shot, he's fine. And that's what I told her first and foremost. And so, she kind of sat there and listened. And she was like, of course, how awesome she is. She asked me how I was feeling because she is a grandma. But I just tried to be as matter of fact about it as I could because there's nothing we could do about it. And that was probably the shittiest part. Was like, okay, great. Thanks for that information. Now I'm going to wait and pass it on to your mom and dad, and then my mom and dad, and then whoever else continues to ask, and we're just going to figure it out until we see your face. And have a proper conversation and at least feel like we can maybe do something about it. I don't know. So yeah, phone calls are never freaking good. As we all know, any hurtful phone call you've ever received is just, I think you a little bit go, well, I went a lot into just survival mode. It's you ask basic questions so that you can even begin to move forward from there. And that's all I could do.
I don't know if I've ever asked you, but what was your communication like with the command after I talked to you? Because I don't know if I talked to you again before I got home.
I don't think anyone called me.
Well, somebody had to have because you met me at the plane. Do you want to talk about that experience?
Well, I mean, sure, but I don't remember who called me and told me where to be and when. Maybe
I'm just curious how much interface or interaction there was, or how much they went out of their way to inform you of anything.
Nobody came to the house. I obviously don't have a recollection of who it was that called me. Or if you told me, I feel like you might have told me where to meet you at. Like, I don't remember talking to anyone else. And I just showed up there like, okay, I need to see him first. And then and then I was fine. Once I saw you and I could see that you weren't.
I was still handsome.
Jesus Christ. Once I saw you and I could see that you were, not in desperate measures.
Could have been a lot worse.
Definitely could have been a lot worse. And I said that one time when we did a CrossFit interview about it. Probably really the true first time I did an interview. CrossFit asked something, and I was talking about that particularly.
Wasn't it Tony?
Yeah, Tony at Torrey Pines College. It was like a level 1 Oli lifting cert or something. Like, made me really excited. So that, and I think I threw a challenge out. So yeah, I don't know.
How, I know this question got asked in some shape or form later on, but how was I to deal with in the months after that happened?
Well, first of all, I had a 2-year-old and I was pregnant, so how was I to deal with in the months? I mean, we were both in not a comfortable situation. Like, I had, like we've said, Riley was 2-ish, and he was a super sensitive kid. And I I was pregnant with Tyler, and my whole world came crashing down very personally on top of me. You know, like people talk about, I can talk about 9/11 when the buildings got crashed into. Like everybody remembers that. I remember the phone call. I remember how I felt. I remember the couch. I remember the plywood over the fireplace. Like I remember a lot of simple things, and your world just really stops. And hopefully you have the awareness to assess the basics, take a deep breath, and make your best choice going forward. And I do feel like I did that.
Yeah, I can only imagine I was a handful in the months after that, trying to navigate my way through, in air quotes, rehab.
Yeah, so I got a little confused with the point of the question. I think it was just a big blur from there. I mean, I was, again, taking care of a 2-year-old, 6 months pregnant. You and I are trying to see each other again after I don't know how many months. 4 months, was it? 3 months, was it?
No, I got shot early on in that one. I was gone about just over a month.
So early on in that one, so that was the 10th deployment?
No.
8th? 7th?
No, that was the 5th.
See how good I am at remembering this shit?
Well, there was a lot of blur in between
Yeah,
being
so
home
that's
and being
part
gone.
of, that's also part of the reason why I didn't want to do any kind of interviews, because like I just blocked that out.
Well, it's hard for me to actually put a lot of, like I have a hard time remembering the few months after I came home, other than not being able to sleep, that ridiculous visit to the hospital where the guy asked me if the gunshot wound was self-inflicted.
That was infuriating.
Yeah.
And I think it's set my personality for how I behave in any doctor's office or ER. Or like I don't have a whole lot of faith in doctors. You got to talk to me a lot. You have to show me something. You have to like make me feel a certain kind of way before I'm gonna believe anything you fucking say or do. And I think that was like probably the concrete experience in my life that set that. I'd had other experiences before when I was younger. And so I think this taps into a question somebody asked about healthcare and what I thought about the VA healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, I can look through it if you want, or you can just answer how you feel about
Well, if you give it to me real quick, I could probably find it.
Well, the person who asked me if the gunshot wound was self-inflicted was not a doctor. That was like a Navy corpsman who probably was on
part of the problem in the first place. Like, why the fuck are you talking to me anyways? Like,
It's okay if you can't find it.
well, I know it's okay, but bummer. I wish I did a better job organizing this stuff, but I will do it in the future. I mean, I know we don't have to be chronological, but I mean, I do want to answer specific questions because
They stood out to you on your first pass through?
well, I just so sorry.
Here, give it to me.
I can't say who it was. You can find it. It's in one of the ones with the notes. But so I'll start on it, and you can find out the person's name, and then kind of if I'm missing anything from the question that they asked. But basically, if I remember, the question kind of was like, you know, what was my opinion of the healthcare that Andy received, and this individual had the opinion that a lot of veterans are unhappy with their healthcare.
I found it.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
This is from Joe.Belcher. Ask her what her feelings are from a spouse's perspective on healthcare given to you from the military. Everyone loves the idea of government-run healthcare, but most service members I know hate the VA.
Right. So, I mean, how long we've been married for?
Anniversary's coming up. Come on now. How long? How many years is it going to be?
I don't know. I might need a really good present to remember.
It's going to be 18 years in February.
I fucking know that. So 18 years plus 1, so I'd say 19 years that I've known Andy in the military. Well, no, sorry, that's not being logical. when you got out. So
You know me for
let's just generalize and say 15 years
Yep.
that I knew you being in the military and having TRICARE or whatever. And we had TRICARE for healthcare. My opinion for Andy's healthcare was what? Healthcare happened?
It was rough.
What? Yeah. So I feel like what happened, and I think I made notes, and since this can all be censored, I
It
don't.
says weak _ very weak.
What else?
It says, Andy, what could you have done different to receive better care? I think that might be a question for me.
That was a question for you, definitely. So my opinion is weak, very weak. That translates to pretty much freaking zero. Like, didn't even happen. We had to go to, I mean, when he came home within, what, the first month? Was that when you had to go to the ER? When your heart rate was like a freaking 160 over whatever?
That was a week after I had been home.
Okay, so you're pumped full of meds, which is awesome. And then your heart rate's going through the roof and you feel like you're going to throw up, shit yourself, and die. And you're in a lot of pain all at the same time. And so we take you to,
Portsmouth.
no.
Yeah, Portsmouth emergency room.
No, we went there second. We went to Damnick's place first.
To the medical clinic?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
And
doing
then
that.
they said they couldn't do anything for you. And they said go there, and they said that they were going to call ahead or some shit like that. And they didn't do anything. And we got there, and we literally sat in the ER waiting room with all the sick people, you know, that are suffering through the flu. And
then when they did let me in, remember when they came in,
Yeah.
the guy wanted to bring in all
Yeah.
the doctors because they had never seen a gunshot.
okay, but he was like, what, the first of what, 5 maybe? So then they proceeded to, because let's keep in mind that this was a, what do you call it, schooling hospital, whatever.
I think all naval
Where they
they're
train-
learning hospitals. They're teaching hospitals.
Training, teaching. So, well, no, not all of them are. This one was.
That one's Portsmouth.
A lot of them
is-
are. All of them are not. Okay, so we both had a really poor experience at Portsmouth, in Virginia Beach Hospital, their VA hospital.
It's actually not a VA hospital. It's an active duty hospital.
Okay, well, sorry, I don't know these words.
It's all right.
Went there. Yeah, that's where it was just a fucking clown show of, where'd you get shot? Can you show me? It was like we were in a bar at first for a little bit, and these people were just coming in asking foolish questions. And you were in an immense amount of pain, and my tolerance was gone, your tolerance was gone, and we were just trying to do or say whatever we could do to get you to the point where somebody that fucking knew what they were talking about and knew that this was somebody that came home from an actual overseas endeavor with a gunshot wound, and they had no clue how to treat it. Not even how to take your heart rate. It was pathetic. So we kind of just went from our own on there. I think that was the last time maybe you went to the doctor.
I went back that other time where they did that experimental treatment where it was like a nerve tap on my back.
Oh, yes. I
Which-
remember like what they do when people have, yes, they stuck a needle in your back to test some dumb shit.
And that was the last time that I saw treatment for it.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, my opinion of the VA through our experience was,
We'll go broader. So VA is Veterans Administration.
Sorry, I
that's
keep
that's all right.
saying that.
That's I can't speak mostly. I mean, you know.
you just keep clarifying me. I just
Okay.
only know what I know, and I don't know all the terminologies and
So
whatever.
you're talking about right now. You're talking about military healthcare, active duty military
Yes,
healthcare.
active duty military healthcare at the hospital
Mhm. In Portsmouth.
in Portsmouth.
How was your experience there with Riley?
Oh no, you were there.
I know. I would describe it as not awesome.
So, yeah. First childbirth, just screwed up 7 side from Sunday. Don't even want to get into it. It was so from that experience, I never went back to military hospital again if I could avoid it.
I would say, and this is me assuming that you would agree, that a lot of the negative experience we had there, probably on both the childbirth side and the injury side, was the fact that it was a training and teaching hospital.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. And even if they're not training, they still don't give a shit because they see it's like a cattle herd. They see 65,000 people a day.
I don't know if they see that many, but...
Well, so, I mean,
But like,
I know a few friends that, like, once we opened CrossFit Coronado, their kids had pretty poor health care. And the moms had pretty poor health care before the kids were even born. So even just talking about, like, you know, the maternity ward, I mean, I can't even imagine, you know, well, I can because I saw it. They didn't even know how to identify, I don't know what you would call it, real world injury.
Just a gunshot wound. It was, but you have to remember too, though, when I got hurt, it was earlier
but I
on
think
in the war.
I think that's a good example of how they had no clue how to deal with men or women coming back from war with injuries. Like the fact
that
that you
hospital.
well,
Like
okay,
Walter
so,
Reed is a different story. Like when I was at NICO, the main hospital right across the street that gets the amputees, the burn, they're so dialed in. It's
I
not
guess
even
at
funny.
that point they weren't infiltrated as much with numbers and stuff, but
It was early.
I would hope that, you know, going forward, that our military people would always remember those times of reality, I guess, you know, what you actually train for.
Yeah.
When people, you know, get injured in war and they come home and what that looks like and the many facets of help that they're going to need.
To answer the question you put a star by for me, what could I have done different to receive better care? I think the only thing I could have done differently was to advocate or be more vocal for myself. I don't know where we would have gone. I mean, I know that the care, and I'm getting the second or third hand from people that are still in, the care is phenomenally better now.
Improved. No,
Yep.
for sure.
Head and shoulders. And
Over the last 10 years, it's changed dramatically. Yes.
And I don't know if any of that would have been available to me, but if I had been more of a squeaky wheel instead of just take my pills and
Okay, well, but
shut
that's
up.
part of the problem is when you're hurting, whether you're, you know, I mean, whatever your injury is, severely physical, you don't have, you know, you're getting your legs amputated, you have burns, you're just completely traumatized and you can't sleep at night, like all kinds of stuff that we hear, right? I hear secondhand stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're messed up and you're hurting, you're not capable of advocating for yourself. And that's where I feel like, you know, I don't know. Again, I can't explain this stuff intelligently because I don't know, you know, the chain of command for you guys or military in general, but I feel like there needs to be, I'm sure there is now or whatever, maybe there was then, but they didn't know how to do it as good. But I mean, you have to have someone step in and just be like, hey, this is what's happening to you. This is what we have available to us. Like, so hopefully that's the way it is now, because when you got hurt, that certainly was not the case. It was like you might as well have been a gangbanger in Compton somewhere that got shot, and they were like, okay, we'll take him to the hospital and just patch him up and give him $5 and he'll be quiet and be better, and then we'll move on and we'll use him again in fucking 3 months.
It was a rough patch for sure. Which leads to another question that has number 1 next to it. Ohumukini, Ohumukini. The question is, during Andy's deployment or when he was hurt and going through his recovery, was there a time that you thought to separate? Kids aside, if you did, what was the reason you continued to support him? Hashtag cleared hot.
Totally.
Don't judge the hashtag.
Read the question again so we can all be clear, please.
During Andy's deployment or when he was hurt and going through his recovery, was there a time that you thought to separate? Kids aside, if you did think to separate, what was the reason you continued to support him?
Okay, so the question is at the beginning, like when Andy was hurt going through his recovery. No, I fucking never thought of leaving him. Not one for 1 second. Like, I didn't know any better. There wasn't another plan. Like, we were in it. I was having babies and you were taking bullets. So, no, I never thought at that time that I was going to leave you because you were going through things and possibly your career was in jeopardy and possibly, insurance would be bad and we wouldn't have money and, my life would suffer and our kid's life would suffer, which at the time we only had one on the way. It wasn't even a thought process. So at the time, no, not even a little bit.
What was the worst characteristic or character trait that I had during that time? Like, what was the toughest part to deal with?
Well, it's still your most annoying characteristic.
Okay. Tell me more.
Not accepting help. Not taking direction. Not letting me...
When you're right, you don't need to take direction. Oh, man, maybe I do need to do video so people can see your face.
I don't know what else to say to that.
So it was just... I felt, so speaking for myself, so I felt like I was on an island. And an island, one, I didn't know how to deal with not being able to sleep and being in constant pain all the time. And
Welcome to motherhood.
Okay.
Just kidding, not making... Well...
I mean, I'm not trying to
I'm
make
not
the comparison.
kidding, but kind of kidding. Yeah, it sucks. At the same time, you're going through your worst physical ailments that you'd ever experienced in your life. I also was going through my worst physical ailments that I've ever experienced in life. And then meaning in the two of those is you had no control over what you were going through, and I had no control over what I was going through. You can't control babies. You can't control your body when you're pregnant. You can't control the military. You can't control the government. You can't control how your body feels when you've been shot and you have nerve damage. And it was a complete clusterfuck on both our ends. And looking back, we're lucky we survived. I don't know
if there's any luck in there. I think...
Well, it sure wasn't intelligence.
Okay. I would
on
say...
my part. Definitely on my part, not intelligence. Like, people ask me those kind of questions, like, how did you do it? How did you get through it? It's like, well, I didn't know any better. I just knew I love my husband. I'm supporting my husband. I got kids. I have babies. You don't know how to survive through those. Just having babies alone, like I've said, is hard enough. So that's a hard enough life challenge. And then you throw in the fact that your husband is facing some physical challenges, mental challenges, emotional challenges. And, he can't sleep. The only time he wants to talk to you is when he needs you to change his bandage, which is basically the only time you would kind of open up to me a little bit. And I don't know, other than that, I think you just kind of pulled back. And I was busy enough that I had to stay with what I was doing, so.
It wasn't my finest hour.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Me neither.
CB376. God, I love the usernames.
Sounds like a truck driver.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. It totally does. Knowing what you know now, because this ties in pretty well.
Sure.
Would you let Andy go back to serving his country in the same capacity?
Yep. That's funny. You hear me say that, isn't it?
Why? Well, I had no hesitation, too. So I guess two questions. Why do you feel that way, and why don't you hesitate?
Well, because
I assume most people would think that you would hesitate. I, sitting here watching you answer it that fast, was surprised. Not in a bad way.
Surprised about what?
That you feel that concrete about that answer, knowing that what you and I have
knowing that it practically fucking killed me.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, and it's not because I'm a diehard patriot. I mean, I do love America and all, but she's a bitch.
So why no hesitation? Why so sure?
I don't know. I can't quite say. It's just kind of how I always felt from the beginning. I never told you no, pretty much. I'm pretty sure, right? I would hope you could validate that. I've never, I mean, I might say, hey, no, let's not, or, you know, like I don't think it's been until super recently that I was like, hey, I think you're done doing that.
First time ever was after Alex died.
Yeah, and I don't think it really had a lot to do with Alex, even though I completely adored him. He was a super cool guy. Just was like, you got too much going forward, and
It's Tyler's buddy.
we have too much going forward. So let's pause it, and we can maybe pick up with that.
Okay. All right. So again, we kind of cut short. Knowing what you know now, would you let Andy go back to serving his country in the same capacity? You said yes, and there was no hesitation. Anything to add on that before we move along?
Why you asked that question?
Because it was written down to ask.
Well, I know, but why does that person ask that question? Do they think like that I would change my life? Even though
I think they probably ask it. So when I read it, when they say knowing what you know now, it's what we've been through, the road that we have been down, the risk that was involved with that, and all of that. Would you be willing to accept that again tomorrow if I asked to do it all over again? That's kind of how I read that.
Sorry, it's messing with my headphones. I don't know. I think I mean, I sound silly, but I think I almost might be more. Obviously, I'd be more ready. I'd be like, okay, well, what do we need to do? You know?
Yeah, we'd gone into it with our eyes. Well, as opposed to, I think we had our eyes open, but we just didn't know what was ahead of us.
Oh, no, I didn't. I had no clue. I had no fucking clue.
All right, next question. G-A-B-E-A-D-A-M-S. Gabby-dams? I don't know. What is your biggest annoyance with Andy, and what do you admire the
I
most?
think I already answered that like halfway through, didn't I say?
Well, let's focus on what you admire.
I said something.
No ability to accept help. That was I said my most difficult characteristic to deal with when I was
it's
hurt.
a huge fucking annoyance. Can't accept help. Won't. I don't want to say won't. Struggles to listen to my version or opinion or order of operation that I would like things to be done in. Which I also too have my own opinion. Andy doesn't like that.
Let's not be that broad. Sometimes.
All right, well, that's the biggest thing.
Well, then now let's focus on all the awesome things you admire about me. And just try to keep it to like 15 or 20.
Hold on, let me adjust my bra. It's kind of tight.
Actually, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
What? Sorry, do it again?
I asked you what the biggest annoyance was with me.
Yeah,
and
I answered that.
The second question was, what do you admire the most?
Well, so I wrote down perseverance, and then I kind of didn't really go much farther than that because I think perseverance encompasses a lot of things when it comes to you being a husband, a father, and the leader of the household. So I could have wrote a whole paper therein of perseverance. So I think perseverance is probably definitely the biggest thing that I admire about you so much.
That's nice. Okay, let's change subjects before you change your mind. Jeff Weatherall. How do you feel about Andy wingsuit base jumping? Does he let you in on things much when a friend goes in, meaning dies? Do you worry less or more when he's on a wingsuit base jumping trip than, say, when he was deployed, and why?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, maybe I'm a cold-hearted bitch, but I never worried about you when you were deployed, particularly. Maybe that's why I didn't feel the need to always talk to you. So how that translates to the base jumping part of your life, I always had confidence. I mean, I knew that you had skydived a ton. I knew how ridiculously annoying you can be about details and how you want to do stuff. So, yeah, no, I know. I really never worried about it. I think the biggest thing for the skydiving, it just kind of came in bad timing. Like, I was like, hey, you're done with the military now. You're done with CrossFit now. You're done with getting your freaking pilot's licensing now. Like, we're gonna hang out and have chicken and sauteed mushrooms and drink, wine and hang out and fight and whatever and have a life and be with our kids and like do that. And of course, no, you wasn't in your plan. So I think more of it just was an annoyance to me, but also too, in that annoyance, I knew you needed to do it, and I knew that it provided you with a freedom that probably one of the only freedoms that could clear your heart and soul from where you had been in the past several years. So in that sense, that's why I never told you no. I never questioned you. I mean, I swallowed my own sorrow and I suffered in silence for a long time, being mad that you were gone. But I mean, ask the same question again, giving now what I know now. How do you say?
If you knew then what you know now.
I'd still let you do it.
What do you feel about me wingsuit base jumping now?
I mean, I like it. I don't like how you waste suits.
I don't waste them. New ones come out, and therefore they're better.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you always know I'm going to let you do whatever you want to do that makes you happy, that makes your heart soar. And I think that that's something that I try to wrap my head around with how giving you are about the horses and Julie and I's endeavors into the equestrian world. It's not cheap. It requires a lot of time. We can get hurt. We have been hurt. Julie's gotten hurt. She's 10.
Going on 40.
So, I mean, you just have to be able to look each other in the eyes and know, like, okay, well, I think I kind of love you.
Sometimes.
So if you die or get hurt doing what you definitely love, then I think I can be okay with that. Definitely more than, like I've said before in the past, you getting shot overseas, I think would have created a bitterness in me that I probably could have never. Well, I don't know. I'm speaking hypothetically, obviously, and ignorantly, but if you'd have died overseas at the hands of
fate,
to be, I could say, a lot of bad other things that I'd like to say first, but
evil encapsulates it.
Okay, so evil, if you were to die at the hands of evil, that would have been something that would have taken me a long time to be able to foster healing to our kids. I think it would have made things a lot worse. Whereas if you go to Italy or Switzerland, or as long as you're not doing something stupid, and like you've always said, a lot of people get in accidents and die because they're trying to put it on film. So, yeah.
I'm interested to hear your answer to this one. Luke JLB. How has Andy changed, positive or negative, since going to war? So for context, we met in 1999. We were both 22. We got married in February of 2001. We were 24. And obviously, if you're old enough to listen to this, you're probably old enough to remember 9/11 and the things that happened after that. So obviously you knew me prior and you know me post and now. So
yeah, but not a lot before, but yeah.
Yeah. So how have I changed, positive or negative, since going to war?
I don't think I really noticed changes, honestly, until like maybe the last 3 years, maybe since you stopped doing like double time and being so task oriented with being involved in the military and also doing CrossFit stuff. And then finally, when you were done with CrossFit, and then you were also done with military at the same time, roughly within the same year or so, too.
About a year, yeah.
Yeah, not far apart. So it's kind of like, huge changes. Like that was, we got paid fairly well through the military. I never felt deprived. I always felt pretty happy with what you earned. And then CrossFit, I forgot the question.
How have I changed, positive or negative, since going to war? You're saying you haven't noticed or didn't notice any changes.
So it took me a while. Yeah,
recently.
that's what I was saying. It took me. So I don't think I've noticed stuff honestly until recently, and I think that's why I'm being a bit more combative with you, where I say no. That's not what I said. No, that's not how I meant what I said.
So what have you noticed that makes you clarify like that?
I think your interpretation of me and my intentions are off. And not all the time, but I think a fair amount of time. And I do...
Do you think that's from war?
I do.
Okay.
Because you're obviously a pretty sensitive fellow, and this is where I feel like having this conversation with you these kind of questions would be best explained on my end, with a third party, I think. At least for now. But yeah, no, I do. Okay. I think it is part of it. And there's more pieces to that too, like how you interact with the kids, and you do very well. I've always been an amazing dad from the very beginning. And just now that we have kids that are older, 15 and 13, and seeing interactions, and then with our daughter that's 10, it's like sometimes you just take stuff that isn't really intended to be that way, and I see you misinterpret that with them, and it kind of makes me feel a little bit better that I know and feel and see and experience you misinterpreting me when I don't think you should. And so my only explanation is, knowing you for so long, is that that's a bit of some kind of, scary word, degeneration. How do you say that?
I assume you're talking about a decline, so degeneration. I don't know. I think I know what you're saying, though.
So, that.
Did you notice a change in me when my deployment switched from being peacetime to wartime?
No. I think you always go. You're never one to be lacking in tasks. You always find something that needs to be fixed, that needs to be addressed, the hard fucking job. You always find the hard job. And that's something that I've always bitched at you about, whether it was through the military or it's through CrossFit or whatever else you're doing. When you first started doing public speaking, I'm like, no, you're worth so much more. Stop telling them all these things. They don't fucking deserve to hear any of it. So, yeah.
Have you noticed anything that has changed about me that you would consider to be positive from war?
Well, yeah, a ton, for sure. And I think maybe that's why people like you for some reason.
Well, what have you noticed?
Well, I think first of all, given everything, honestly, Your ability to be humble and to apologize and to, in that apology, to find solutions that make things better, whether it's with me or the kids. Because, shit goes sideways 75% of the time. So in that, being able to figure out how we're going to continue the conversation. And I think that's the biggest thing, is continuing the conversation. And I'm not saying we're great at that. I'm definitely not. I'm probably worse at it right now than you are. I think you're better at it, continuing the conversation. I just get pissed and want to cry and throw bombs.
I don't know what you're talking about. How long we been going? All right, I got a question. I like this one. Maybe we'll end this one for tonight because, like I said, tomorrow I'd like to sit down again.
I think I'm busy.
No, I think this would be very good for us. Last question for tonight from Forging Faith. She's a military spouse, and I get that, and respect the heck out of everything that comes with that. But I'd love to hear about her as a person outside of all things military. What have been some of her life goals and aspirations, and how has she worked towards those over the years? What challenges have gotten in the way of those goals, and how has she overcome them?
First of all, that's way too wordy.
Well, here, I'll turn it
Break it
you.
down. So let me look at it and I'll just tell you. Because I did read this and I did think about it quite a bit.
You put the number one up there. So.
Well, because I think number one not meaning it's my favorite thing to answer.
No, first session.
Because right, that's what I said. So for me, one of the biggest things that I think I've done in detriment to myself is I have always put Andy first and his career first, from very beginning. Call that ignorance, call that patriotism, call that blind faith, love, whatever. Like, that's just the way I was created, that I was able to do that. I haven't always been happy with those choices and whatnot. So talking about myself is always the hardest person. Always the hardest question. I think somebody else already acknowledged, like, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but obviously to Andy, animals are my passion. I love animals. They're my friends. I can understand them more than I understand most people. I think I can get along with them, even naughty ones, pretty good. So one of my aspirations I wish I would have been able to fulfill as a young girl was to be a veterinarian. And that just didn't really work out. And then kind of my second thing was, since I always think I'm right, which I usually am, well,
40% of the time, you're right, 100% of the time.
Okay. Focus on the 100%. So when I first started going to school, college and doing the junior college route, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. I was like, I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm really good at finding shit wrong with other people. And I have no problem pointing it out. So for a long time, I thought I wanted to do that. My dad helped foster that really well. He actually introduced me to a FBI agent, a female FBI agent that I went to lunch at an Italian restaurant. Felt very mafiosa-esque. And I asked her a bunch of questions, and it was super Silence of the Lamb, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to pursue this. And then kind of in the meantime, I was like, well, I need to make some money in the meantime. So someone recommended going to like cosmetology type school. So I ended up going to esthetician school because I thought, well, I can get this certification and make decent money and work, and that'll help me get through law school, whatever I'm going to do, right? That was my plan. So those were my aspirations in the beginning, and then Andy took me to lunch and
Irresistible. I'm sorry.
higher calls came, I guess. No, I don't know. We just kind of went from there, and it just, I became a wife and a young mom. I became a mom younger than I think we would have both liked to have planned for.
Do you think we had kids too early?
Me, definitely. I don't know, too early. I mean, our situation when we were in our early 20s and first got pregnant was a clusterfuck. It was a shitstorm. That's a whole nother conversation. But, so, I wanted to be an attorney. Later in life, I thought I would pursue that. I agonized over how I would go about doing that. You know, I've been to 5 junior colleges. I have transcripts from half the state's junior colleges. But then when you go to put all those credits into one spot, it really doesn't mean shit. So I kind of got I screwed myself. I didn't go about it in the most efficient way. I lost my way for sure. It's obviously been something that pissed me off a long time because I wasn't the kind of chick that was going to be like, oh, I can't wait to marry a Navy SEAL and have 3 kids. And he's going to go to war and it's going to be awesome. That wasn't my life plan.
Just for clarity, I don't know if anybody says that.
Right. So that's the joke. So,
What are your aspirations now?
Well, being 41 years old, I've learned that aspirations need to stay, I think, short term to be effective. So my current aspirations are to pull my head out of my ass, keep forging forward with jiu-jitsu, which is currently pummeling me so unfairly. And I'm in a really good program, and I feel very lucky with what I'm doing. I'm super happy, but my stuff is super short term right now. I just need to get my shit together again, which I feel like I'm doing. And so in that process, I just hope to continue to grow past all the past transgressions of our experience in the last several years. It's been a long time, but it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I feel like I can overcome that hurdle and it's not going to keep me back anymore. So.
Enough for one night?
Sure.
Okay. We'll be back tomorrow.
Sweet.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you this week. I am hoping that part 2 continues next week. And if it looks like we're going down that road, what I'll do is solicit for some more questions. Thank you again to Blue Chew for supporting the podcast and specifically this episode. Go to BlueChew, BlueChew.com. Promo code HOT. Get your first order for free. Pay only for shipping. And like I said before, be responsible. BlueChew.com, promo code HOT. There's a couple things you can do if you're enjoying the podcast and it's at least entertaining you or helping you accomplish some things that you want to accomplish. First one is do me a favor, tell somebody about it. Second one would be write a review on iTunes, good, bad, ugly. Tell me you hate the sound of my voice, which I can't do much about, obviously. But anything other than that, if you have something that you'd recommend for improvement, send it my way. I'll do the best that I can. Also in that, guest suggestions, hit the contact button on clearedhotpodcast.com. Send me an email if you have somebody who you think is unique and would be interesting. I have 2 or 3 lined up in the very near future to include, hopefully, again, another one with my wife. And, yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. What else? Free Range American. We have a few things coming out. This week specifically is going to be an item. It's not like a crazy departure from what we already have, but it's something that is a tribute, I would say, that's the word I would use, to a community that constantly has their toes on the line and is giving back, and it couldn't be more timely given what's happening in California. And without really tipping my hand, you probably put two and two together on that one about what's really leading the news out there and the weather and the conditions people are suffering through this week. If not Monday, when you're hearing this, I'm going to release something else on freerangeamerican.us. Oh, and yeah, if you like the podcast, you could also buy a t-shirt or whatever you want to rock some Cleared Hot gear, clearedhotpodcast.com, hit the store button, and